Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ron Ward. I got to tell you guys, Ron bribed me to be his co-host some 2 years ago. Just joking. Ron, what episode is this?
It's funny you should ask, Kristin. We are celebrating our 100th episode. Can you believe it?
I know. It's insane. I am very excited for this. And it's like you said last week on our episode, this really bumps us up. Once you hit 100, you become much more visible. So we're excited about that because we're both numbers data driven, but also we have touched a lot of people and they've reached out and let us know how our episodes have impacted them. So it's just been a great thing all around.
Yeah, that's worth it all. It really is to hear people say they appreciate the podcast. That's great. So brace yourself on this. Kristin, can you believe it? Our first episode aired on March 9th, 2023.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Time
almost been 2 years.
flown.
That's insane.
Yeah. They always say time flies, and it really does, but they say time flies when you're having fun. And this has been fun. Hard work, but fun.
Yeah.
So congratulations to you, Kristin.
Yes, you as well. You as well.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's talk about something. Let's take a moment. I want to thank our producer, Steven. He edits our mistakes. He makes the podcast seem smooth, even when we have mistakes. I mean, I got stuck on a word the other day, and what was it, Ron?
Meritocracy.
Meritocracy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just wasn't resonating with me. So we have instances like that where he has to go in and edit it and make it seem as if everything just went really smoothly and we got it all in one take, even though we generally do, Ron. But Steven, thank you so much. 100 episodes. Thank you for making us look good.
Yeah, absolutely. We also want to thank our Facebook group, of course, all the listeners, Jeff Flug, who's been with us from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Also want to wish one of our faithful listeners, Kelly Jones, a happy birthday. It's today.
Happy birthday.
So that's exciting.
Yes. All right, let's get to it. So to commemorate our 100th episode, for the first time ever, we are going to have a couple of guests make appearances. And these two people have been with us since the beginning. They're going to tell us how they heard about the podcast and share their favorite podcast episodes. And they may even recall some favorite moments. Some may be funny. I don't know.
Yeah. In addition to all that, as we discussed, our producer, Steven, we gave him a green light to put together a blooper reel. We've saved some bloopers, and neither Kristin nor I have, we had no influence on the bloopers. So we're going to be as surprised as you guys. I dread it a little. I hope he works Kristin in sometimes. It may be all me, but
oh my gosh, I don't
we
think
thought
so.
that would be really funny. So do not leave. You've got to hear these blooper reels at the end of the podcast. I think it'll be quite funny.
I do that. I went to say did and do at the same time. On my social media, that's something that, naturally when I make videos, there are going to be some bloopers. And instead of deleting them, I would save them. And I haven't done this in a little while, but then I would share the blooper reels. People love those. So it just makes you, seem even that much more real in a digital world. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I love that he had, full autonomy to make it happen.
Well, the only thing I'm hoping is that he does not dab the bloopers with Kristin's potty mouth. That
I don't think
must
you will.
say, she's doing a lot better, and I take the credit.
Oh my gosh. You take credit? Yeah. No, I've cleaned up my act a little bit. Just getting better and better every year, but sometimes I feel like a longshoreman comes out of me sometimes. But
all right, Kristin, before we delve into, we're going to do a recap for you guys of some of our favorite. Now, we liked every episode, but some of them stood out to us. So we're going to do that. But before we do that, we've got a segment to celebrate the 100th episode.
Oh, yeah. At this point in the podcast, we have two very special guests. We have Cassy Roop and Marty Logan here. And Cassy, I'm going to start with you. Welcome and thank you for everything you've done to promote the podcast. Now, tell us, how did you first learn about the podcast?
Hi, thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. Been a longtime fan. I discovered the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast because I was looking for a way to cope with a very toxic work environment. And so one of the ways that I would deal with that is on my drive to work every morning, I would listen to a podcast about having to deal with a horrible boss or a toxic work environment. And I had actually put into the search, toxic bosses or horrible bosses. And then the horrible bosses episode had popped up. And so I clicked on it, and that just happened to be episode number 1. And I've been hooked ever since.
Oh my goodness. I actually thought, what's funny, until recently, I thought you and Ron knew each other since you're from the same region of the United States. So I didn't realize that is how you found us. So that's amazing. That was episode 1,
Number 1.
right? Yeah.
Episode
How
number
cool
1.
is that? How cool is that? Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad you found us.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I thought you thought Cassy and I knew each other, Kristin.
I totally did.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We
So
just
Cassy,
run
go
around from
ahead.
the same parts.
I know. I'm like, it's just what a coincidence there. So what are a few of your favorite, you just talked about horrible bosses. Outside of that, what are a couple of your favorite episodes or moments, and tell us about them?
Horrible Bosses is probably will always have my heart and be my number 1 favorite episode. And then my second one was My Boss is a Narcissist. And because obviously both of those went really well into the situation that I was currently dealing with at my employer. And I don't know if it was like a way for me to trauma bond or for me to just relate. And it felt like you guys had stepped into my life. And, because everything that you said, I was like, yes, that's happened to me. Yes, that's happened to me. And so the thing that really hooked me on it was that it's so relatable. And then not only that, but you guys would turn it around and offer solutions on how to be able to cope with that or to deal with that. And that helped me so much. And then another one is the emotional intelligence episode, which is something I have always had to work on, listening and not being overly emotional or taking things personally have always been struggles that I have had to deal with, and have, that's a professional side of me that I have worked on and I will probably always have to work on. But just being relatable to my everyday life was the biggest thing that hooked me on, with you and Ron. And I've listened to every single episode ever since.
Oh, wow.
I know you're going to get an award for that. We'll have to figure out what, Ron, but
Yeah, I'm not even
that's
sure I can do
amazing.
that.
I mean, I already got the t-shirt, right?
Oh, that's awesome. Ron's like, I'm not even sure I've listened to all of our episodes. At least you were there for him.
I used to cringe. So Cassy is also our Facebook administrator. I guess we should mention that.
Yeah.
And, we certainly appreciate that. And Cassy, we set out, Kristin and I, when we began to develop the podcast, we didn't just want to be term-based like a lot of leadership podcasts would take a term and expound upon that, but we wanted to be very relational, very even emotional-based, social-based, so that would provide practical applications. So I'm really glad to hear you say that. That's certainly one of our goals. And Cassy, you went to the next level and you ended up getting certified as a forward operations executive coach. Tell us what that experience was like.
That experience was phenomenal. It prepared me for my role that I'm actually in now. So long story short, the extremely toxic work environment that I was working at, which led me to the podcast, and I 100% tribute my success now to going through the leadership coaching program with Ron. I had just happened to reach out to him one day, and I think I sent you a Facebook message and was like, hey, do you ever do one-on-one coaching? And because I was looking for an out, like I had left a toxic work environment, immediately jumped into another one. And I, was looking for hopefully that Ron would coach me one-on-one. And he was like, well, funny that you should say that because I am starting, a leadership coaching program. Would that be something that you might be interested in doing? And I was like, absolutely, sign me up. And it gave me the confidence and the knowledge and the wisdom to be able to take everything that I learned through the program to not only help others apply it, but I applied it to my own situation. And I did a complete career change, went from being, in marketing, and now I'm an HR manager. And I am helping other workplaces to have good working cultures and to celebrate their employees and to listen and to show and help develop future leaders how you can appreciate your employees and how you can be a good leader and get so much better results, financially, relationship wise at work, just by being a good leader, right? And modeling that. And I fully think that, if it weren't for this podcast, I probably would be not where I'm at now. And I'm going to get emotional. But yeah, the coaching program, I applied it to myself at first. And now I apply it to my work and to my children. Don't tell them that. And it's been phenomenal. And I highly recommend that if you are looking for that next step, if you're looking on a way to become a true leader, an effective leader, then you should do the program.
Well, thank you so much, Cassy.
What a testament.
Yeah, that was touching.
Beautiful.
It really was.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally love that you invested in yourself and that, you did something about the position you were in. You were able to break that cycle. So kudos to you and to Ron. I mean, that's great. The tools that you provided, Cassy, clearly went far.
Well, thank you. We have someone else here, don't we?
Yeah. And Cassy, thank you so much for being with us on this very special episode.
It was
Means
my
a
pleasure.
lot.
Thank you,
So
Cassy.
awesome. So now we are going to go over to you, Marty. How are you doing, sir?
I am unbelievable. Thank you for asking.
You know what's cool? I didn't point this out earlier. So, Cassy, you're coming to us from Virginia, correct?
Yes, I'm in Virginia.
You're in Virginia. Marty's in Arizona. We were trying to figure out Arizona's on a different time zone only part of the year. So that's from me here in the Pacific Northwest. So we were trying to figure that out. It can get confusing, but love that we have 4 states here represented in this episode. So I think that's pretty awesome. So Marty, tell us about how you first heard of our podcast.
Listen, I was looking for a podcast to help me fall asleep. And figured I'd put on something. I know, right? Figured I'd put on something boring about leadership and drifted off.
That's funny.
Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. I stumbled across the dirty side of leadership about a year ago, and the first episode I heard was, my boss is a narcissist. And I mean, who hasn't dealt with that? I was hooked right away. I typically gravitate towards positive, useful content. I found it here, but with an edge. And what really stood out to me was how down to earth Ron and Kristin, how you both are. And it feels like I'm listening to 2 people who genuinely understand leadership because, well, you've lived it. And that's when I realized you 2 live up to your tagline, where leadership meets entertainment. The way that you mix real world stories with solid data driven facts makes this podcast not only fun and relatable, but for me, highly impactful. And I'm truly excited to be here for your 100th episode.
We are happy to have you here. Ron, I stole your line earlier. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So, Marty, is there any other episode that's really stood out to you, and maybe tell us why?
Well, truly, my favorite episode has to be, I mean, look, I love the recent one about Greenland becoming part of America. I listened to the one on the IRS today, but drum roll, please. 7 signs you're being sabotaged. Guys, that had so much content, so much information that's relatable to anybody. It opened my eyes to how subtle and damaging saboteurs can be in leadership, the workplace, and life. You guys broke down how these behaviors aren't always obvious, like being excluded from meetings, getting incomplete information, and how they quietly erode progress and morale. I mean, what really struck with me was how relatable it is because we've all dealt with this kind of BS. It made me realize I wasn't crazy for noticing these toxic people and or dynamics. Naturally, for me, being a business owner and being in real estate, leadership isn't just about guiding my team, but it's about influencing and collaborating with industry partners. For me, title companies, mortgage lenders, appraisers, inspectors, not to mention other agents. I believe building trust and maintaining strong relationships across any board in life is key. This episode also helped me recognize the importance, and this is a big one, of choosing the right people to work with in my personal and my professional life. And it's so important for me to avoid these disruptors or saboteurs because, guys, they can really disrupt progress for my clients. So for me, episodes like this have made me reflect on how I can lead more effectively and protect the culture and partnerships I've worked so hard to build. Look, that's leadership insight that really stays with you.
Oh, I love that. I was going to ask you how you apply what you hear on our episodes into your day-to-day life, but you almost answered that with the first question, which is, as someone who's interviewed hundreds of people, that's always a beautiful thing when that happens.
Well, and all the information. So just listen to today, your podcast today. I think that the dirty side of leadership is a guiding light in the world of darkness. I think right now the world is divided and people are having a rough time and it's a distraction what's happening in the world and you guys are grounding and for me you're a guiding light and I'm grateful for that.
Marty,
That means a lot.
we really appreciate that. And I started noticing a trend, and Kristin and I have talked about it, that most of the questions we were getting, and I even got when I was writing my book, was not, I'm not empathetic enough, which is the only word you seem to hear in the corporate world, but people did not know how to handle these cutthroat businesses. And you can't be too naive because you got competitors out there and they don't all play by the rules. So there is a part of leadership that you have to learn to deal with these people who are going to undermine you and sabotage you. I think that's the one I told the story where someone stole a program that I developed and presented it somewhere else in the United States and took credit for it. I didn't let it bother me, but I had a friend call and said, hey, I just saw your edge weapon program and, this person took credit for it. So these things are eye openers for sure. Let's do one more thing, Kristin.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Cassy and we will come back to you, Marty. Cassy, what's something you'd like for us to cover in the future before you go?
Can I say everything? No. I would love a 2.0 on horrible bosses or my boss is a narcissist. I would actually be interested in you guys retaking the test like you did in that first episode just to see if there were any changes along the way.
See if we've increased.
Or decreased or even I would take that quiz too. I think too the art of conversation is something that I've been really kind of doing a lot of research on lately, and how to be effective in your communication, how to get across what you're trying to say without filler words, but in a polite, respectable manner. and being able to because we all know that effective leadership boils down to being able to effectively communicate with your team, because when you lack that communication, then that's where all the issues start to come to light. And so that's something over the last year that I've really focused on myself. So I thought that maybe that would be a really great future episode as well.
Did you jot that down, Ron?
Well, I was going to tell her.
I like to delegate to Ron because then he gets irritated.
we literally, that's been added to the coaching program. But did you hear the episode on conversation matching?
Yes.
That is a part of it, and how to decode a message. But we'll jump on a Zoom, and I'm gonna update you. And we have our monthly coaches meeting, but I'll update you on that. But I already have something I think that might suffice. So, Kristin, maybe we can jump on that. But yes, I'm Kristin's assistant, and I'm taking notes.
I'm always like, that would be amazing if you could jot that down. I'm fresh out of pens. I don't know.
Cassy, I'm going to say this before you go. No one has caught this, but I never revealed my scores on that narcissist. It wasn't intentional, but I told Kristin later. I said, "Did you notice I never revealed my scores?" So
I didn't.
Anyway,
I didn't catch that myself.
If you go back, you'll see that I somehow worked around that. So we focused
and the
on
funny
Kristin.
part is we were early on. I don't know what number that one was, but it was in like the first 10, I believe. And so I wasn't at that comfort level with just outing you. It was number 3. Okay, that makes sense. So I wasn't like, today I would just say it. I would be like, come on, Ron, buck up. Right. And then, but that was episode 3. I was still feeling you out.
Well, you guys were still very new in like your relationship then too, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Now that comfort's in, you like, I can call him out now.
Oh, his number is going out in public this time.
She'll probably do a post to her 80,000 followers.
You even remember what your score was?
Gosh.
It was close to Kristin. I mean, she's way higher than me, of course, but
yeah.
No,
I don't remember the numbers.
Our scores were pretty close, and I found myself struggling with a few of the questions, arguing with myself. But so, Marty, over to you. What would you like to see us cover in the future?
Well, I picked up on an acronym you said a few minutes ago, and that was AI. And so AI is really the way of the future. People are scared to death of AI. It's the fear of the unknown, and we know people don't like change. So, we know the current administration is currently investing a lot of money in platforms and in infrastructure for AI. I use AI. I embraced it a year ago in real estate and as a business owner. I use it every single day. It's definitely enhanced my life. It's saved me a lot of time. It's helping me more effective. And we look at, the data and the energy level and the amount of energy that is needed to back these server farms and the energy. It's mind-boggling. And so I would love for you to do a deep dive into that. I mean, we know that IBM is in bed deep with China, their server farm in China. And we know that there's some other server farms here in the country. But I think that would be great because I know more people are jumping on ChatGPT every day and they're growing. And AI is getting so much better. It's learning. And I've watched ChatGPT grow in the last year, just so much more effective now than it was a year ago. So maybe something like that people might want to hear.
Yeah. Because we did one on AI friend or foe, right? But we focused, it was a little bit different. Now it could be breaking down barriers on, the pros to it and how to accelerate whatever you're doing.
How to embrace it. I don't know.
Yeah. And Chris and I both use it almost daily. So we jumped on the train early. And we had an AI speaker at the conference where Kristin and I spoke. So, that's great advice. I think 2.0s are coming on horrible bosses and AI. Yeah. So that's really good
I thought
stuff.
of another one.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hear it.
How to work with complicated people.
Oh, I love it.
Or how to work with people that you can't stand.
Yes. We had something like about our coworker, but there's so many that we could really dive into a little deeper.
Yeah, we sure could.
Yeah, it's hard.
All right.
Those are difficult ones. This has been awesome, you guys. You guys know we've never had anybody on. It's just been the two of us for the first 99 episodes.
Because we're narcissists.
Because we're narcissists. That's amazing.
Kristin just texted me and said, hurry and get them off. I'm kidding.
Oh,
joking.
yeah, right. I'm on airplane mode. I can't text. Oh my gosh. No, it's been wonderful to share this milestone with the two of you. And thank you for being loyal. Thank you for becoming our friends. Literally, you guys have our cell phone numbers and we text, right? Marty, we're texting. And so I think it's really a cool relationship that you're able to develop. And I think, both of you really highlighted what Ron and I have set out to achieve. And that is being relatable, being real, and really we air some of our own dirty laundry sometimes. And I think that there's a reason for that. And that's because people want to realize that, oh, I'm not the only one experiencing this or who has experienced this. So thank you for being able to highlight that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you're listening, Cassy's wearing her Dirty Side of Leadership podcast t-shirt, and Marty looks like he just stepped out of GQ. So
I know, Marty, I think
guests.
you were the first one I ever sent a t-shirt to.
I didn't get the memo.
Yeah, you were the first one.
I love it. I love my shirt.
That's fine.
It's soft.
That's cool.
Would have been the first one had Ron had my address.
That's true. I think I sent yours at the same time, and then it got returned because Ron gave me an old address. And then
I'm not afraid to call him out now, Kristin.
It was good. Yeah, empower yourself.
You're starting to break up, Cassy. I can't even hear you.
He's gonna hang up on you here soon.
Hey guys,
but thank you both.
Yeah, thanks so much for your support.
It was my pleasure. Yeah,
All
I
right.
look forward to being on here many years to come.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you both. Bye.
All right. Well, that was uplifting to know we got people who listen to every single episode. So cool.
Very.
All right, guys, for the 100th episode, we're going to do a recap. So if you did miss some episodes, we'll fill you in a little bit, but we do encourage you to go back and listen. So I'm going to get us started, and you've heard a lot about this one already. One of my favorites was My Boss is a Narcissist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's funny because when we made that, I was talking in the episode about someone that I worked for who was definitely not a narcissist. And I shared it with her. This is one of my old bosses. And I should have communicated it better because I was sharing it with her like, hey, I mentioned you in this. And she goes, wait, I'm a narcissist? I'm like, no, like as the person who's not. Sorry, should have led with that. But it's a good one. In that episode, we provided some really interesting information on antisocial personality disorders. We're seeing a lot of that in this digital age, such as where does the word narcissist come from? We were just talking about that with our guests. It seems to resonate with a lot of folks.
No, it does. And I had done a deep dive. Of course, as a federal probation officer in state early in my career, we had to deal with a lot of personality disorders, but I continued that. And Chris and I both love psychology. So just a quick recap. I wondered when we put this together, where did the word narcissist come from? So let's look at Greek mythology. And there was a Greek youth who rejected the desperate advances of nymph Echo, which I guess you can figure out where the word nympho comes from.
Yeah.
As punishment, he was doomed to fall in love with his own reflection in a pool of water. So day after day, he would just sit there and gaze at himself. And eventually he turned into a flower that is called a narcissist. So we thought that was really interesting to lay a quick foundation. Then we began.
Wow, it's been almost 2 years. I actually forgot that.
Yeah, I had to look back at that one, Kristin. Then we discussed narcissism, sociopaths, and psychopaths. And I think this is what made the episode so popular. We mentioned that sociopaths, they've come to be the way they are due to some kind of social circumstances, either trauma or something else. And there is a segment of the brain that literally stops when a child is traumatized and it doesn't develop. And it puts people in this vicious cycle. So a sociopath does not have a conscience, and also they could mimic behavior, but they don't care to do it. So sociopaths are easier to recognize than psychopaths. Psychopaths are believed to be genetically inclined, which I don't understand all of that. But a psychopath will mimic behavior, and they can fool you into thinking they're a normal person, aka Ted Bundy. So, and then a narcissist, everything about them, it's not about intentionally providing harm. They just don't care if you're harmed in their desire to have accolades and get attention and all those things. So we made that distinction, and I think that might have been one of the things that made that episode so popular.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just even the true crime aspects of it.
Yeah.
That's what the number one podcast, subject matter looked for. So anyhow, yeah, that was definitely popular. One of my favorites was episode 4. My coworker is annoying,
Me
and
too.
that's and because I'm comically driven, so that's where the infamous tapeworm story came in. And Ron and I have gotten a lot of traction from that one. So I can reiterate the story a little bit. We talked about oversharing. When people that you work with or people that work for you, they overshare. I know, Ron, you talk a lot about keeping that mysterious aspect of you, especially when you're a leader. In this episode, we're talking a lot about people that don't have that ability. They just, word vomit, right? It just all comes out. Well, there was an instance where someone that worked for me was very vocal about the fact that they had passed a tapeworm at work in the break room restroom, and they were showing it to some of my employees. And and of course, I found it comical and horrifying at the same time, but that talk about oversharing. So, and then pictures were being passed around. I mean, it was just insane. So that story, oh, should I share the bagel piece of it too? No, I think no, you have to go watch it. You have to
Yeah.
go listen to it. I'm not going to give that away because that's the best part. So there it goes on. But yeah, episode 4, some of the 3 most annoying habits that we really dove into are interrupting, stealing credit, and the oversharing that I've just touched on. And we also talk about brown nosers. And Ron and I both said that we could spot a brown noser at work from a mile away. And I feel like I still can, even though I'm not in the traditional office setting.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was a great episode. My next favorite one was one of our more controversial episodes. It was episode 10, Are You Suffering from Diversity Burnout?
Mm-hmm.
In that episode, Chris and I were a little ahead of our time. We began to see all the problems with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to be very clear. She and I love everyone, but we do believe in a merit-based system, and we have confidence that anyone can be educated. Anyone can rise to higher heights if they pursue it and if they want to do it. So we began to see all these problems. We decided to do that episode, and we believed, and that, by the way, the statistics, go back and listen to it. The statistics bear it out. It was causing more racial division. It wasn't causing unity. It was doing the opposite. So we believe that that episode was a turning point, even for us. We began to look at these things from a realistic perspective, and a lot of people did too. I got phone calls and text messages about that because it, corresponded, whether it should or not, with the woke mob. And all of these things started to get put together, and people just really got sick of it. And I think every race got sick of it. So fortunately, many major companies are eliminating DEI programs. We did one about Walmart doing it.
Yeah.
And we think it's a better time.
Yeah. Target just announced the other day, and a lot of large companies are rewinding. Yeah, that was risque, right? We're
Yeah.
talking over a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So it might be mainstream today, but that was definitely not. And we did get a lot of really positive feedback from people of all walks of life and all backgrounds. And it was positive. It was like, thank you, right? Like no one has the
Yes.
courage to say this right now. So yeah, I'm glad you highlighted that one, Ron. We also touched on this in other episodes, from the breakdown of the Secret Service during the attempted assassination of President Trump, and what we believe to be an issue in the California wildfire or the California Fire Department. These things that they're continuing to come to light, and they have hurt different industries, and
Yes, they have.
they've hurt different departments. And I'm really happy to see that it's being called to the carpet, and we're going to see some change going forward.
Yes.
All right, so let's continue. My favorite episode, or one of them, was episode 13, Talk Like a Boss. And in that episode, we provided ways to boost your presence within your company. So we focused on hedge words that undermine credibility and make you look weak. For example, I think this is a good idea, or I believe this could add some value. Those are weak statements. And we're all guilty of using weak language at times, but this practice undermines our effectiveness. It plants seeds of doubt in your audience's mind. So it's important to identify the situations where you tend to use weak language. And what's your current role? Think about that when you're speaking. Are there certain colleagues, clients, or customers who put you on edge, right? So you need to be aware of that when you are communicating with them.
I got to be honest, Kristin, if someone is pretty new in the leadership world or they're in college or whatever, they need to listen to that episode. It's very powerful and it gives specifics on how to conduct yourself and make you, I call it, access your superpower. So I'm going to move on down. Kristin, I'm going to pick my next one. And this got more and more difficult because we have emotional connections to these episodes from the research and everything. But I chose episode 17, One Word That Will Change Your Life. And we were able to help a lot of individuals with this one. Do you know what that word is, Kristin?
No.
No, you don't, or no?
That's the word that will change your life. Yeah, no, that one personally impacted me as well.
Yeah, you had me for a second. In that episode, we used a listener submission, and without being too detailed, this was someone that was involved in work, church, and all these other activities, and frankly was a little insecure and just would not say no. And it culminated in this person getting physically ill, having problems with their child, and they finally woke up and realized, oh my God, I've got to stop some of this stuff. And they said it was one of the greatest breakthroughs of their life when they learned and developed the ability to say no.
Yeah, that can be a moment of enlightenment. And I know you said you struggle with that a little bit. I think I did a lot more. I think women struggle to say no a lot more than men, just given, our rise up. It's just been a different experience for women getting into the workplace than men. And so that's something I used to be a yes woman. Right. Yeah. And so, that episode resonated with me as well. And sometimes we just people in general we're too nice to a fault. And we encouraged our listeners to establish those boundaries that are so important and make sure people know that you have them. And the respect for you when you set boundaries, it's going to grow exponentially. All right. So my next choice is episode 20. Hack your way into the beauty bubble. Oh my gosh. I'm like, when I was researching these, like looking back at the 100 or the 99 episodes, it was fun because I was reliving a lot of it. And this was an interesting one because we were looking at Forbes articles where economists' career progressions were followed between 2002 and 2006. And the results revealed a close correlation between the physical attractiveness of the economists and their success, both in terms of research and career progression. And the bias continued upon graduation. So it was pretty wild. We talked about the TikTok phenomenon and people getting millions of views by dancing. So, just the better looking people are, the more clicks they get, the more follows they get. It's just the bias is real. And that does happen in work industries as well. So we were talking about how to hack your way in if this doesn't necessarily come naturally to you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I did a TikTok dance. It didn't work for me, but that's another story. Just quickly, we did talk about how you can hack your way in through your body language, displaying confidence. And we showed that sometimes you have to be a tough leader. You have to show that you've got a toughness to you because a lot of times people try to be subjugated or subordinate to people to fit in. And the problem is that does not make you respected. You're really not fitting in. You're still on the outside. You're just being kind of dominated by the people that are in the clique or in the know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we went on and talked about grooming and personal hygiene. It's something, this episode is great. I'm so glad we're talking about it again, because though it's not in people's, top 1 or 2 that we hear about a lot, it's so basic. And so many people they don't wash their hair before they go to work. Some people, I can see the plaque on their teeth, right? Like, it's disgusting. So we talked about some really basic stuff like personal hygiene, grooming. I mean, just even, are you heating up fish in the microwave at work.
I
Like
forgot
that's
about
just
that.
so
Yeah.
disgusting. And it's just it's like 101. Don't be nasty. But yeah, that was a good episode.
Yeah, and you don't want to go barefoot on an airplane. So,
Yeah.
and we touched on healthy lifestyle choices. People watch you and they know if you work out every day. And I told the funny story I used to tell the two people closest to me in my office. I always, when I was going to work out at lunch, I would say, I'm going to hone the vessel. And it always got a good laugh. We talked
Yeah.
about developing your own unique style or being a subject matter expert. That will always get you going. And we talked about the power of a smile, and you can give people dopamine drizzle just by smiling. And that's a really powerful force. So I recommend everybody, we're going to do this every time. Go back and
Yeah.
listen to that episode. It's
I
so
know,
good.
right?
It's so good. So many great topics.
Yeah.
My next choice is going to be episode 32. And I know you're not surprised. Parts 1 and 2. What's your
Yeah.
body language saying?
Right.
And Kristin knows that I am just engulfed in this. I took a training recently that was done by a former FBI agent and someone from DOD. But the thing that we brought out, the problem with a lot of the body language training that you take is it focuses on external body language. You're watching someone else's, but it doesn't give you good information about your body language. And Kristin and I not only talked about being observant of other people's body language, but also your own. We also looked at studies that found that communication is 55% nonverbal. Think about that. 38% is face-to-face conversation, but only 7% was words only. So even when you're talking to someone, they are gauging you. They're looking, we talked about an eyebrow flash that shows people that you're interested. So all these dynamics are going on when you're talking and people just are not aware of their own body language and what a powerful force it can be. You want to increase your vibe, access your superpower, you develop the positive body language.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talked about signaling also and how you can have a conversation with someone without saying a word. So that supports what you were just saying with the numbers there. And we also talked about open and closed gestures. And I mentioned that people create barriers and comfort themselves by crossing their arms, their legs, maybe even laying something down on a table, like a pencil, notebook. It creates this barrier. I know that Dr. Marissa at the convention, she was talking about, for those just listening, I'm holding up a coffee cup, but and I don't know if this is just from the years that we would go to bonfires and I would just hold a beer in my hand, and I would always have just having a drink in my hand when I'm having a conversation with somebody is really comfortable for me. And apparently that's a barrier. I never thought that I was putting a barrier out there, but it became kind of a comfort item, I guess. So it's just a wild episode.
Kristin, I promise you, since you said that about the dentist, I've never gone to the dentist that I'm not aware that I'm crossing my legs.
Oh, crossing the legs.
And
yes.
In our leadership training, we do talk about adapters, illustrators. Adapters are when people get uncomfortable, they start adapting. Some people will. Remember Rodney Dangerfield with his tie? But if you have a baseline, like if I know you, you know me, and you have a baseline to work from, then you can really tell what's going on with me sometimes by the adaptation that I'm applying. You might, as a probation officer, I would look at someone and I'd say, have you used drugs? And all of a sudden you get some adaptation going on. So that's a powerful thing as well. I've mentioned the eyebrow flash of how that shows interest, nodding the head. You're giving permission to continue to talk. And I'm not sure we went into this, Kristin, but it is natural for people, if they're finished with a conversation, their foot will point toward the exit. They will adjust one foot toward the door, and then their shoulders will do the same. So if anyone ever does that to you folks, that means they're tired of the conversation.
Yeah, they're done.
Wanting to exit.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's funny. I totally do that when I'm trying to get out of a conversation. I just not necessarily thought about it. Wow.
And we talked about mirroring, mirroring the situation. Subtle mirroring is best. But anyway, let's go into your next favorite.
I was
Kristin.
tempted to go into Justine and how she mirrors hardcore, but
Hi, Justine.
Hi, Justine. That was so funny. I just can't. She loves that Southern accent, folks. All right. So I chose episode 39, remote work, the good, the bad, and the Wi-Fugly. It's supposed to be Wi-Fi ugly, but it's supposed to be a little play on words there. But so we discussed the positives and negatives of, at the time, this is going back, this is an earlier one, so at least a year ago, but I had worked remote for a few years. So it's newer, if you think about it. A lot of people are going back to work these days, though. So we encouraged companies to develop metrics to evaluate the effectiveness of working remotely because it's not for everybody. And but then some people thrive, and actually it saves companies a lot of money. So we just need to make sure that that everything was being thought of. And we advised leaders and managers to lighten up a little bit and trust their employees that are working remote. And those, working remote, working from home, we provided information such as establishing a dedicated workspace, because I know that's been a problem for a lot of people, even people I knew. I knew people that were using ironing boards as a desk because they liked the stand-up desk they had at the office, and they were remote and didn't have the option, right? So it's really important that you have that designated workspace that doesn't have a lot of background noise, and that can make all the difference.
Yeah, and the other thing we brought out, Kristin, is the fact if you don't have a designated workspace, like I had someone was dealing with depression, but they would set their laptop, they would sit on the couch and they would set their laptop beside them, and that was a break. Well, that's not a break.
No.
You're still attached to work. So I told them you got to get out and walk. But get a workspace so that a break represents I'm leaving work and I'm taking a break.
Right.
So that was something important that came out. We talked about consistent schedules. And you're right. At the time we were doing this, we were probably coming out of COVID. I know we'd been out for a while, but it was still going on. And remote work is still a hot topic. I was coaching, to correspond with what you said, I was coaching a CEO, and I'm telling you, he was old school. He was so mad about a hybrid work environment that he said, I'm going to use the name Brian. I'm sure Brian is going to Walmart during work hours. And he was so upset. So I said, do you think when you retire that you're going to be sitting beside a fishing hole and you're worried about whether Brian went to Walmart? I said, you should have the matrix, as Kristin said, to be able to tell if Brian's getting his work done, and you need to chill out. And people who have a fixed mindset, they're hard to get them to calm down. But he did warm up to it just a little bit. So I talked about some of the other benefits of remote work and how it can help morale and all that. And there has to be some trust. People, Kristin's favorite thing, I've gotten to know her, is micromanagers. She loves them.
Oh my gosh, the worst. Oh yeah, not my favorite. All right, what do you have next,
Kristin?
for us?
I'm gonna jump on down to the next one that I chose. I did this in honor of you, Kristin. Leadership at 30,000 feet. Kristin thought of this.
I remember
it was really
that.
cool.
Yes.
And I had stories, but you had a cool airplane story. You can decide whether you want to tell it or you want people, but you saved America, basically. You saved America. So
I don't know what would have happened. Oh my gosh, it's been a little over a year. So I was coming back from Dallas, and we were boarding the airplane, and it was headed for Portland. And it was this really, I don't know, belligerent guy. I say I don't know, because I don't know if he was mentally ill. I don't know if he was drunk. I don't know what, but he was belligerent. And he was about 2-3 people in front of me. And he was being really nasty and, excuse me, crass with the woman that was, when we were boarding, there was someone that worked for the airline inside there. Anyhow, I got this really, I got that gut feeling. So I got a bad feeling about him, and I was just kind of nervous. But you know what he said in the terminal that really, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, is the lady said, "You're sitting in an emergency exit. Basically they asked the question, are you able to kind of, I don't know exactly what they say, Ron, but are you able to be the leader or whatever if something were to happen?" Right.
Right.
And she said something about kids. She referenced kids. And that's when he screamed, "F kids, F all of them." And then he just stormed past her and went right down. And he continued being belligerent. So as soon as we got on, I saw that he was indeed sitting in the emergency exit. And I was like, no, that's not happening. And I was just like a few rows behind him. So I called the attention over to one of the flight attendants. And long story short, they put him through some like a questioning process, and he didn't pass, and they kicked him off the airline. And for the rest of the flight, I had the flight attendants bringing me all sorts of, chocolates and just all sorts of stuff because they were so thankful. I don't know what would have happened, but you just got to go with your gut on that.
It was really awesome. But I did point out in the episode that, of course, he was on his way to Portland. Like, where else would he be going?
Well, his final destination was Alaska. I do remember that. So we were just
don't steal my thunder. Come on.
I know. Just to be real, but yeah, it
that was
wasn't
such
good.
a cool. We should have named that "Kristin Saves America." But anyway, we realized there was a trend happening. Listen to this: statistics from 2022. Out of 568 flights, the incidents on planes were up 47% more than the year before. So, continuing with that same trajectory in 2023, there was approximately 834 unruly passengers. So that episode was timely, and we did tell people, if you see something, say something, speak up, do what Kristin did, because we really don't know what would have happened. This person, every time I watch social media, you're seeing people fighting or getting thrown off a plane. So
I know.
you never know.
Yeah,
What do you
that's
got
crazy.
next, Kristin?
Yeah. Episode 60, cancel culture in the workplace. And, I've seen this firsthand. We discussed how culture has gotten out of hand with all the social media platforms and how many great people have been destroyed by quote unquote keyboard warriors. And Ron, you talked about the time that someone tried to leave or lead a revolt to cancel you after you came on my streaming show,
Yes.
KSOC Uncensored, which was, political-ish show. But, we also addressed the selfishness of the pronoun debacle. And I even told a story of a knitting influencer who got into the crosshairs of the culture mob.
Yeah, and we took on some controversial issues that you don't see in leadership podcasts, but we challenge people to stick with your values. And sometimes that hurts. It really does. There's people that have been put out of business over this, and there's story after story that we could go into. But the bottom line is, in life, in business, and everything, you got to stick to your values. You got to be you and not allow people to sway you or intimidate you.
Right.
All right. This next one, Kristin, was probably one of my this may be in my top 5, and there's a reason. Not because I love P. Diddy, but I chose 84, P. Diddy in the federal court system, simply because I spent my whole career in the federal court system. It's just like when you're talking about banking. So I was able to provide some insight that probably the general public doesn't know. And you're watching news updates and all these, and you hear them talking about some terms and the judiciary and sentencing and pardons and all this stuff. So I was able to talk about the 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial branch. And I was in the judicial branch my whole career. And I showed how those 3 work together, how the legislative branch develops laws, and then the executive branch enforce laws, and then the judicial branch, the judges, they interpret laws. So I think it was a pretty interesting episode. I did get some comments on that, and I was excited to do it. And we did use P. Diddy because it was the hottest topic around, and there continues to be developments from that case. But I like talking about that.
Yeah, and I think if anyone listening is interested in government or law enforcement, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that episode. I personally learned a lot. I know we kind of had that one set up where I was interviewing you, because that was it was quite foreign to me. So it was a learner for me too, which was fantastic. So we're almost finished here, folks, and we're going to get into those bloopers. But I wanted to share another one of my favorites, which is episode 86, and that's the phenomenon of failing up. And wow, that one, I got a lot of people reaching out to me and saying, yes, why does this happen? And, we primarily focused on politicians who are incompetent, yet somehow managed to get promoted. Yes, we did use Kamala Harris as an example, and she had very few, if any, successes, yet was selected to be vice president and then run for president. So We encouraged a return to mediocrity. There's that word, Ron. Ron wanted to slip that in there because I had an issue with it a few weeks ago. And
Meritocracy, Kristin.
Did I just screw it up again?
You did. You said mediocrity.
Son of a gun.
No, we're leaving it in. This would be a blooper.
Meritocracy. Why can't I get that one? Mediocrity.
I was building up. I was getting so excited.
I was excited because I thought I said it right.
I have to keep her humble, folks.
Oh gosh, I know. Yeah. Well, there. We'll.
We're leaving it in. All right.
Yeah, we're leaving it in. Ron's forcing me, so you can see the real deal Holyfield here.
My last one was episode 95. And I'm a big goal setter, and I also have been a goal failure, not just a setter. I've failed some goals. So I've done a lot of studies on how the brain works. So I enjoyed episode 95, evaluating 2024 to succeed in 2025. We explained evidence-based practices. We talked about conducting a gap analysis, find out what went wrong. Why didn't you reach your goals the year before? And we talked about how you apply that to business and those gap analysis with, subject matter experts and people who have a broad array of talents can help you in business. And these thought leaders, you bring them in, you say, hey, here's the weaknesses. And I'm telling you, you can make huge progress if you apply the principles that we talked about in that episode 95 for sure.
Oh my gosh. Is it that time, Ron? I know you're dreading this.
I know. Keep lingering. We don't want the bloopers.
As promised. Do you want to give us a drum roll?
Yes.
Let me see if I can. I'll do it on the mic. The bloopers from the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast. Stephen, you're up. Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin, and let's start over.
As a bonus,
let's redo that because it sounded like you were.
We are calling this episode. God,
can we start over? Sorry, we're leadership. We are going to discuss the topic.
It even rhymed.
Wouldn't I want to say being more? Oh, I had it right, but then I was thinking it was speak. Sorry.
Here's what I started to do when you started talking. Can you see me?
Oh my gosh, I do it again. Your adrenal glands and endocrine glands. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Can you just delete that whole one? You went too early.
I know. I couldn't see the numbers. Oh my God. We're saving that one.
Welcome to the 50th. Sorry. Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership. Because they don't believe that what they have to say is of importance. I did the wrong thing. Far too many people walk in the shadows, so to speak.
Billy.
That brown nose. No, yeah, let's do it again. In our next episode, we share 25 high-paying jobs. I don't know if I should say high-paying. They're not.
What were you?
Get your together.
I was going to use that one.
It's a good one. Hey, Ron, I was just listening to your book on Audible, and sorry, gotta redo it. All right.
Don't go. I lost my rhythm.
No. As your organization grows, so will the derelicts. And I'm just curious, did that... No, I don't know.
Did you say derelicts or derelicts?
Join us for episode 40 of the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, Radical Transparency. What do you think about that, Ron? Forgot about the sausage. Sorry.
We are going to give you 5 essentials to making an impact. Also, we're going to talk about boogers and Kristin's ex-boyfriends.
Oh my gosh.
Should we keep that? Okay, Kristin, I'm too embarrassed to finish the podcast. You're going to have to take us home, but I'm still going to put in my final word. Yeah, that was good stuff.
I personally like being embarrassed a little bit. I mean, I just got embarrassed. I guess someone that's not me would have been embarrassed about pronouncing that wrong again. A little tinge of embarrassment. So no, I don't have a lot of shame in my game.
Stay tuned next week where we teach Kristin to say meritocracy.
He's going to put all of the words that I struggle with in one episode, and it's just going to be littered. with problem areas for me. All right, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this recap. I know for us, I can speak for myself, Ron. I know you did as well. It's been fantastic going through and reliving the research and the topics and the subject matter. And thank you to our guests and even for the bloopers. And don't forget, subscribe, rate, and continue to promote this podcast.
All right, everybody, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.